Now, chances are you've heard that honeybees are dying at an alarming rate.
For the first time in history, bees have been placed on the endangered species list. 7 species of yellow-faced bees were placed on the list several weeks ago. Protection for those species officially starts on Monday. While all the endangered bees are located in Hawaii, the fact that they're on the list is significant.
I think that it's really good that we're recognizing the importance of pollinators, and as we recognize the impact that these species are having on our agriculture and our ability to eat the things we want to eat, I think that that's a good thing.
Honeybees are not included on the list, but worldwide, population declines continue.
The honeybee is not on the endangered species list, but it doesn't matter. Without a beekeeper to manage the bees, the honeybee, Apis mellifera, would be on the endangered species list overnight.
We're trying to kill a bug on a bug.
Bees in the United States are under attack.
And they have a parasitic mite called the varroa mite, which makes it really hard to get our bees through the winter.
The varroa mite are infecting hives and colonies of bees and decimating populations, in part because pesticides are making bees more susceptible to these mites.
Loss of habitat, that's another huge issue. That's how the bees eat, and if they don't have that, then we have to feed them, and that can get really expensive.
Local mosquito control workers are keeping an eye on an experiment that could reduce the amount of mosquitoes that carry Zika in our area.
Voters in the Keys approved a plan to put genetically modified mosquitoes into neighborhoods, a move that could be seen in other parts of the state. New at 5, Action News Jack's Lorena Inclan is live in St. Augustine. And Lorena, it's a first-of-its-kind experiment.
It is, John, and we spoke to the education specialist at the Anastasia Mosquito Control District, and he called the GMO testing a very valuable step in the right direction. But if it does get implemented locally, and that's a very big if, you, the voter, would have to approve of it first. With Zika cases growing by the day, some mosquito experts say releasing genetically modified male mosquitoes into the environment could help stop the spread. Anastasia Mosquito Control District Education Specialist Christopher Bibbs says the experiment has had success in other countries.
These males find females and mate with them, but their offspring, they have sort of like a faulty biology to them now because of this modification, and then they have a 100% die-off rate.
The mosquito being targeted is the Aedes aegypti, a carrier for the Zika virus. Florida now has more than 1,100 cases, and now a small Florida Keys community could potentially become the first in the country to test genetically modified mosquitoes.
And if it works, this could open up a different playbook, you could say, for how we treat disease and how we deal with mosquito-borne illness.
But Bibbs tells me the test does come with some controversy.
A lot of people wonder if the introduction of GMOs into our environment stuff jeopardizes our ability to have organic industry.
Turning now to the fight against the Zika virus, where researchers for both private companies and the U.S. government are racing to develop ways to prevent infection. This week, phase 1 of human clinical trials began for a Zika vaccine developed by scientists by the Walter Reed Army Institute of Research. It will be tested at their trial center in Maryland.
Well, this is an inactivated vaccine, so the viral particles themselves have been inactivated, so the people can't get Zika, but the protein coat that surrounds the virus is intact. So the idea is you give it to somebody, and it's the protein coat that teaches the immune system how to go after the Zika virus.
Tara, I was reading that there's promise when it comes to rats with this vaccine, but is this the first human trial that we're seeing with the vaccine?
So there's actually 2 other human clinical trials right now. The first is a vaccine produced by a company called Inovio Pharmaceuticals, and that human clinical trial started in June. The second is a government-produced vaccine, and that trial started in August. The interesting thing about these vaccines is, unlike the type that John described, these are called DNA vaccines, and they basically work by taking a small piece of DNA and re-engineering it to put inside that little circular DNA pieces of genes that code for Zika proteins. When you then give that to a human, for instance, then the human body cells produce that protein, the body mounts an immune reaction against it.
How a simple cough turned into this.
We could have lost her.
Killer superbugs nothing can stop them.
People can't imagine how dependent they are on antibiotics, and we're losing.
Inside this top secret military base, the terrifying new threat.
The antibiotic of absolute last resort won't kill it.
Now it's heading to Australia.
Untreatable super. Can you imagine everything that we're going to lose with that and all the lives?
The alarming investigation on 7 Sunday night.
Deadly earthquake rattling New Zealand, the 7.8 magnitude quake, which hit just after midnight, blowing out windows, knocking items from shelves, and triggering a tsunami warning. Here's ABC's Jennifer Eggleston on the moment this massive quake struck.
Cell phone video capturing the terrifying 7.8 magnitude earthquake. The massive tremor striking just after midnight on New Zealand's South Island, killing at least 2 people. Dramatic video revealing flattened homes, landslides blocking a major coastal highway. Overnight, frightened residents taking refuge in the streets. The tremor's impact so violent, roads cracking open, supermarket shelves emptied.
Everything started shaking and then it got worse and it just didn't stop.
Nearly 2 hours after the first jolt, tsunami sirens urging coastal residents to get to higher ground.
That tsunami threat now receding, but already more than 50 aftershocks shaking the region, and more are likely.
New Zealand has been hit by a second powerful earthquake, only hours after a 7.5 magnitude tremor killed at least 2 people. Some communities on the country's South Island remain completely cut off after the initial quake badly damaged roads and other key infrastructure. The tremors have triggered a series of major landslides as well as a tsunami of up to 5 meters high, forcing thousands of people to flee to higher ground. And authorities have warned the worst may not yet be over, with fears more aftershocks may follow.
A strong 6.2 magnitude earthquake hit northwestern Argentina Sunday, the U.S. Geological Survey said, but there were no immediate reports of damage or injuries. The quake, at a depth of 62 miles, 100 kilometers, struck shortly after 1400 GMT about 16 miles north of the city Chilecito in the South American nation's La Rioja province. Villagers reported that the movement was felt in the neighboring provinces of Catamarca, Tucumán, and Córdoba. The country's seismic authority also reported 3 smaller earthquakes Sunday. The quake near the border with Chile follows a 6.4 magnitude earthquake of great intensity earlier this month in central Chile. That earthquake shook buildings in the capital Santiago, causing panic among residents.
The Southeast continues to deal with its worst fires in
decades. There's a look at one of them. This is one of the largest fires burning right now in the southeast. This is the Rough Ridge Fire in the mountains of Georgia. And you can see not only are we dealing with fire, but check out all that smoke. And it's really filtering into major cities like Atlanta, which is what you're looking at there. It's not clouds, it's smoke that they've been dealing with. Charlotte, Chattanooga, Asheville, all have been dealing with the smoke from these fires as well. Now, this all stems from the drought. We're talking extreme drought conditions right now in the southeast. This is one of the worst droughts that the southeast has seen in a while. There's a look at Alabama, and this just goes to show you how bad it is. The governor has declared an all-out burn ban and also a water restriction. Now, this is for the entire state. There's a look at all the wildfires burning right now. So we have 38 active large fires. This is going to be a problem for time to come because not a whole lot of rain in the forecast. Now, there's a look at that Rough Ridge Fire. Near 17,000 acres burned so far and only 20% containment. Another fire that's a major concern, well, that's the one in North Carolina. So what are our rain chances? Well, as we go into next week, there is going to be some rain. We have some coming up the East Coast, some coming in from the Midwest, but it's all very meager. So it doesn't look like it's going to do a whole lot to relieve this problem.
Sunday marks the one-year anniversary of the Paris terrorist attacks that killed 130 people. And while all of France is honoring the victims of the attack, there was some unexpected news. France's year-long state of emergency could be extended again. French Prime Minister Manuel Valls told the BBC, "It is difficult at this stage to end the state of emergency, especially as we are about to begin a presidential election campaign in a few weeks when public meetings will be held. We need to protect our democracy." The state of emergency was declared the same night as the attacks and was extended first in February and again in July. It originally was only supposed to last 2 weeks. The state of emergency allows French security forces to perform warrantless searches, and it has been used not only against terrorist cells, but also to break up protests. Protesters have called the state of emergency a government coup, and Muslim and human rights groups say it's discriminatory against France's Muslim population.
Italian Muslims say they will pray at St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican if officials continue to shut down mosques in Rome. That was reported after protests were held in the country's capital on Friday against the closure of a sixth mosque in just a few months. There are almost 2 million Muslims in Italy, making Islam the second biggest religion there. However, there are only 8 official mosques, and because of that, many do pray in so-called garage mosques. Well, they are being closed at the moment by Italian authorities who say they don't meet safety standards. We spoke to Imam Sami Salem about this. He says the clampdown is unexpected because many of the mosques have been around for decades.
At the moment, officials have decided to shut down several small Islamic centres in Rome. They've closed them on the grounds that they function outside the country's legal system. This will definitely create further problems for Muslims in Italy. In Rome and its suburbs, they've already closed 6 mosques. Such decisions puzzle us, as the majority of these mosques have existed for at least 20 years here, and the building's legal status or violation of law were not questioned before. Now we'll probably have to pray outside, as we did before while praying near the Colosseum. But all this was strictly within the law. But we shouldn't play that card by praying in the Vatican.
Meanwhile, a top German newspaper quotes intelligence reports that Islamic State has been teaching its fighters how to behave like refugees. ISIL's apparently trained its fighters to apply for asylum, as well as explaining how to reply under police interrogation. From the very beginning of this refugee crisis, it was obvious to even the people on the street that terrorists could try to work their way into Europe posing as refugees. It seems now the intel suggesting that they're not only doing it, but they're sort of practicing how to do it well. Is there any way at all of stopping them? Because it would appear not.
The only way of now, there's no way of stopping it, full stop. But there is a way of reducing the risk by actually vetting people who are coming in a more in a deeper and better way. And
but isn't the intel suggesting they're actually prepared for that? They're prepared for interviews with the police, and that, how much more can you vet people?
No, but right now you just have a lot of beginners, people who actually are vetting. What is being done now in these so-called reception centers? They're just trying to get name and where they came from, etc. by beginners, people who are hired from other jobs, who have no idea what they actually ought to be looking for, and with no intelligence or police experience whatsoever. So they just do the job.
The Obama administration has agreed to resettle about 1,300 asylum seekers held at Australia's expense on the island nations of Nauru and Papua New Guinea. Another 370 refugees who came to Australia for medical treatment, then refused to return to the islands, are also eligible. Trump has called for tight restrictions on Muslim immigration. Most of the asylum seekers are Muslim from the Middle East, Africa, and Asia. Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull would not say whether he had discussed the deal with President-elect Donald Trump during their telephone conversation on Thursday. Turnbull said, "We deal with one administration at a time, and there is only one president of the United States at a time."
Aides to President-elect Donald Trump have reportedly warned the Obama administration not to attempt any unpleasant surprises for Israel in their final months of office. The Trump aides told the White House officials that they shouldn't push any policies that don't match those of President-elect. Israeli leaders have expressed concern that Obama might support a UN resolution or push an initiative of his own that could impact Israel. President Obama and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu have clashed repeatedly over the Palestinian issue. Senior Trump advisor Jason Greenblatt sought to ally Israeli concerns, saying, quote, "With Trump, there won't be any coercion for negotiations between Israel and the Palestinians. He thinks Israel is in a tough anti-Israel position and won't force a solution on Israel." According to Trump's people, peace has to come from both sides. If Trump will have an idea that can contribute to the sides, he will do so, but he doesn't intend to force a solution.
It's not too late, free from hate. Think of the future that we could create. Face the facts today.